Federal government generates 424.71 billion naira value-added tax in the third quarter of 2020. Central Bank of Nigeria to assess risk of banks with cross-border expansion. Foreign reserves declined to $35.69 billion in October, plus bridging financial gaps shall be the focus on Business Express this morning. The program is coming to you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital, and I am Leah Katumba Batunde, your guide. And we begin the business of the day by telling you that the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, says the federal government generated 424.71 billion naira as value-added tax VAT in the third quarter of the year, as against 327.2 billion naira generated in the second quarter of the year 2020. The NBS stated this in its sectoral distribution of value-added tax data for third quarter 2020 just released. The report said that 275.12 billion was generated in the third quarter of 2019, adding that the 2020 figure represents a 29.8% increase quarter on quarter and 54.37% increase year on year. It adds that manufacturing generated the highest amount of VAT with 47.07 billion naira, closely followed by professional services generating 44.01 billion naira. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, says the country's foreign reserves fell to $35.689 billion as of the end of October, adding that the reserves, which was $35.72 billion by the end of September, lost $49.29 million in 4 weeks. The reserves, which had continued to rise and fall in recent weeks, stood at $35.67 billion as of September 1 and rose to $35.81 billion as of September 17. The CBN, which had earlier stated that external reserves were expected to lie between $29.9 billion and $34.3 billion by 2020 ending, noted that a degree of external reserves accumulation is expected to decelerate as outflows are expected to outweigh inflows. Now, still remaining with the apex regulator, the central bank says that it will introduce guidelines to assess the level of exposure of banks with international authorization that are engaging in cross-border expansion. The CBN stated this in its report on monetary, credit, foreign trade and exchange policy guidelines for fiscal years 2020 and 2021 on cross-border supervision, added that this would enable it to monitor the risk of the operations in the countries where they are operating. The guideline aims at setting supervisory expectations regarding the management of country risk by banks and is applicable to all banks with international activities and exposure to country and transfer risk. Let's now see how the Naira is exchanging this morning for major currencies. Now to our focus for this morning. Turning resilient low-carbon ideas into strategies and finance-ready projects is the priority of the City Climate Finance Gap Fund by the World Bank and the European Investment Bank. Over now to Benny Adams for this very brief report.
History has shown that urbanization is a key driver of growth. Unplanned, rapid urbanization and urban sprawl present a huge risk for increasing greenhouse gases and enhancing vulnerability to climate change and other shocks. Many developing countries are urbanizing faster than at any point in history. Study shows that the most significant impact will take place in Africa, where urban land cover is predicted to increase by 700% compared to a 160% increase in the continent's urban population between 2000 and 2030. At the same time, as many cities and local governments take steps to become low carbon and climate resilient, they face barriers in accessing finance for climate smart urban infrastructure projects. All too often, they also encounter difficulties due to insufficient capacity or resources, particularly in the early stages of project preparation. An estimated $96 trillion of sustainable infrastructure needs to be built by 2030, and up to $4.5 trillion will be needed to effectively prepare investment projects. Urbanization and the COVID-19 response provide a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to plan, develop, build, and manage cities that are simultaneously more ecologically and economically sustainable.
No, thank you, Benny. So, how can Nigeria, especially the subnationals, benefit from this environment-friendly funding opportunity that also seeks to promote reduction in carbon emission? Ernest Henry is the South Regional Niger Delta Volunteer Coordinator Special Monitoring Mission of the International Human Rights Commission. He's been raising awareness on the City Climate Finance Gap Fund. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, now, Henry, let's get started with you enlightening me. Now, just let me know, what is Gap Fund and how does it work?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here today. And let me first of all thank the World Bank Sustainable Communities for giving me this privilege to be here today and to share this awareness to Africans at large. The World Gap Fund, it's the City Climate Finance Gap Fund, simply known as Gap Fund, aimed to help bridge, the unbound financing gaps to achieve low carbon climate resilience and pathway. And Gap Fund helps cities in developing and emerging countries and realize their climate ambitions, and turning low carbon climate resilience ideas to strategies and finance ready projects, especially in an environment where resources and expertise are limited.
Okay, so tell me now, how beneficial is this fund to Nigeria?
Yeah, there's a lot of benefit. Yeah, most especially during the launch, I could remember when the Honorable Minister of Environment, Luxembourg, she made mention that Luxembourg is currently now running on free public transportation in Luxembourg. I think one of the benefits that Africa and Nigeria as a whole can key into this Gap Fund developmental project that can also come into the country. For instance, the sustainable urban mobility, energy efficiency and small renewable, including building and retrofit, street lighting, district heating and cooling, solid waste management and regular economic activities such as water and waste water management, green of urban areas, natural-based solution, blue-green infrastructure, ecosystem restorations, and central urban planning.
Okay, so sorry, let me just cut you in now. Okay. If we're going to bring this to the basic level of every Nigerian for us to be able to understand ourselves, is it something that is only the federal government that can tap into, or the state governments or local governments can also tap into?
Yeah, it's GAFON is open for, because there are some principles that need to be followed, which I'm actually here to guide both the state, the local, and the federal government on how to assess the GAFON.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are those principles?
Yeah, such as, for instance, like I already started from the Federal Ministry of Work and Housing, which I've submitted a proposal with, and I'm actually working with them. I'm waiting for their response officially. And in terms of, there are some, there are some like guidance, like kind of an approval that GAFON will need the support of the federal or state government, or like they call it local authorities, in terms of security, and when these projects are actually carrying out in their domains, in maybe in their communities, they will need that security, they will need that space to carry out this project, this GAFON project.
Okay, so are there any conditionalities for maybe the states to follow before they can access this fund?
Yeah, there is not much, the condition is not much. It's actually you fill the expression interest form online, and I'm actually giving that mandate to liaise with the federal and state authorities and potentially work with them to develop this proposal. Before now, I've contacted some of the state government that I have some contact with, like Akwa Ibom state government through the chief of staffs, and Nasarawa state government through one of his essay, and some other state government, Kogi state government through the chief of staff, on how to key into the project. And mostly, I believe that in Niger Delta region, they really need this project, and other parts of the country.
Yeah,
for
I was
development.
actually going to ask you if it's every state in Nigeria that is in need of that is having these environmental issues, and how we can also tap into efficiency and build a smart cities. Is it every state now, or some states have higher needs than other states?
Yes, exactly. Some states, for instance, like the Niger Delta region, they are in the higher needs of this particular project, which was my primary focus, which was what actually brought me or took me to this step.
Then you realized that you could go to other
activated
places.
Like I've been on this queue for like 2 years ago with the World Bank Sustainable Development Communities. I've been going through some of their questionnaires, and they've been educating me on all this about. I've been actually activating for the development in the Niger Delta region. But as it is now, I think I cover up the Africa at large. Oh. And it's a grace for that. And I will urge all the state government, like for instance, like in terms of water management and waste management, I think but the FCT needs it, and every state actually need that very particular development.
Yeah, sanitation has actually been some real
mostly
problem.
like lightning and energy lightning, for instance. Like with the GAF fund coming into the Africa, we don't really need to depend on NEPA any longer, because we are looking at, GAF fund is actually looking at solving the problems of the power and creating jobs opportunities. And also, we are like a target, well, like what GAFON is actually targeting in 2020 is to look at $97 trillion infrastructural development in Africa at large.
Okay, so now, yes, they looked at all these funds, and perhaps this projection was before COVID-19 came, which is now changing the way we do things.
Yeah.
Now, so what opportunities have this coronavirus, thrown up for cities, especially in Nigeria?
Well, it's an opportunity. It has, well, if I mention that is an opportunity, like for the world leaders to come together and bring out a program like this to develop Africa, and which Nigeria is going to be #1 beneficial, because I know it's my mother's land. I'm going to do everything possible to ensure that the Nigeria owns the large project in it. Well, the COVID-19 has also chose a means and a way of surviving, irrespective of the situation we found ourselves. But most especially, I think government also need to build up a strong a strong, sustainable development, smart cities that can enhance in one way or the other in times of needs like this that arise. The people will not do that slack or have that, they should have that confidence that there is something they hope for. Either the situations, it's the way it is today, because I know the prices of things have increases and the way we live is no longer the way it's supposed to be. But in COVID-19, as the opportunity that COVID has brought, GAPS Fund have brought so far, it will help a lot of cities to recover from COVID.
Okay, great. You
situation.
talked about jobs being created. What are the kind of jobs we should expect from this fund?
Yeah, GAP Fund is not going to, they're not going to only like kind of transform the cities alone. After transforming the city, like slum area, like I've been mentioned in one of this, like slum area, they will transform. I think I have a picture of it here to like share. It will let you see how it's going to be. Like a slum area like this. This is a slum.
Okay,
It's
you
to
can turn it so the camera can
it's to
take it.
transform this slum into a city.
Okay.
And with this now, there will be an employment. And it also help to bring investors into, they will not just only develop the cities and go. They will develop the cities, then introduce more investors that will stabilize the city and enhance the employment.
Okay, so before I let you go now, can you just tell us how can states apply for this fund? And are there checks and balances, instruments to ensure that the funds actually meet the targets?
Well, like GAP Fund is not, they are not actually giving out a physical fund.
Exactly.
The state need to create, they just need a site. You need a plan, that master plan. The state is also, it's for the state that has a plan, that has that developmental mindset. Like if I don't mention a state like, I don't know a state like River State where I grew up from, they have what they call the Greater Port Harcourt City, which I actually know that with the GAP Fund, it will help build up that Greater Port Harcourt City, for instance. But I know other states to also have that mindset. Any state that has that mindset, it's for them to submit their expression of interest, and the GAP Fund with some other documents that may be required. It's one step or the other.
So who are they submitting this interest?
It's an online. Mine is just to guide the states and the federal government. Like I already started from the Federal Ministry of Work. My essence of starting from the Federal Ministry of Work was to ensure that at least the project circulates to the 36 states of the country, including FCT. But there is also an opportunity for the state government to key into it too as well, from their various different projects, depending on what they want to establish in their state. Okay. But I also believe that the sustainable mobility, like for instance, it's every state needs it. For instance, well, the GAP Fund is also looking at the end of the day, that we in Africa can also run a free public transportation. That's also one of the aims.
Okay, thank you very much, Henry. And I'm hoping that very soon we're going to get there, and the states would also key into this very, very lovely initiative.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sure. So we're going to move on and now, still talking COVID-19, which has brought with it innovations in what is now termed the new normal. Now, here's a story of a 26-year-old lady who saw prospects in the face of coronavirus and cashed in on it. She's using the digital space in ensuring one of man's basic needs gets to doorsteps, as put together by Olayin Kaojo.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
I'm into grocery delivery, anything basically, even to refill your gas and everything, and that's what I do, door-to-door deliveries of any item. So we go to the market, go to the shopping mall, and take away your stress basically. So so far we don't have a center, we don't have our own shop yet, and a lot of people want to be confident to say, okay, if anything happens, there's a location I can actually go to. But right now we don't have a shop yet. But it's people that trust us so much, and not personally, that most of the time patronize us, but we want to be able to, we've already registered the company name, but want to be able to have a center where people can actually come to and say, okay, yes, I know this is the person, this is our location, and this is our shop. So that's one of our biggest challenge. Because a lot of people have issues going into the market because of the COVID issue, social distancing and everything. So a lot of people have that challenge of going into the market. So we help you solve that problem.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Now, gold prices have risen this morning as the coronavirus pandemic expansion rate worsens. It is also D-Day in the U.S. as election climaxes. Let's see how commodities are faring around the world. Now, oil prices slipped on Tuesday as worries about soaring COVID-19 cases, a rapidly rising Libyan supply, and U.S. election jitters outweigh growing hopes that major producers would hold back on planned production increases. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures slipped 6 cents to $36.75 a barrel, while the Brent crude futures fell 15 cents to $38.82 a barrel. Italy is the latest country in Europe to tighten COVID-19 restrictions, including limiting travel between the war-hit regions and imposing a nightly curfew, which will limit fuel demand. And still from the markets, Nigerian stocks began November on a bearish note as stocks declined in the first trading day of the week to see investors lose 26.81 billion naira. Stocks in Asia Pacific were higher on Tuesday morning as investors await the Reserve Bank of Australia's interest rate decisions. Over now to Muplang Tekok for that update.
U.S. stock futures rose in early morning trading as investors await Tuesday's presidential election between incumbent Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. Dow futures rose 161 points. S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq 100 futures both also traded in mildly positive territory. Stocks in Asia Pacific were higher in Tuesday trade as the Reserve Bank of Australia lowered its cash rate target. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index jumped around 2% in morning trade. Mainland Chinese stocks were also higher, with the Shanghai Composite gaining 1.28%. European stocks are following a trend of positive sentiment seen elsewhere this Tuesday. London's FTSE is seen opening 47 points higher at 5,654.97. Germany's DAX 102 points higher, and the CAC 40 of France is also up 42 points. Stocks in Africa are also expected to follow the positive trend after closing mixed on Monday. With global market updates, Muplang Dakok.
And that does it for this edition of Business Express. Thank you for spending your time with us. Now, we value your feedback, so keep the questions, comments, and suggestions coming. Remember, you can catch up with all previous episodes on YouTube. On the NTA's channel, you can also communicate with us on Twitter. The handle is NTA News Now. Don't forget to use the hashtag. It is BizX. Business Express returns tomorrow at 3 p.m. My name is Leah Katung Baba today saying keep staying safe out there.